Welcome to Around the Horn in Wholesale Distribution with Kevin Brown and Tom Burton. Sponsored each week by LeadSmart Technologies, Tom, Kevin, and their guests review the news of the week and dive deep into the topics impacting manufacturers, wholesale distribution, independent sales agents, and the global wholesale supply chain. Whether it's M&A, SaaS and cloud computing, B2B e-commerce, or supply chain issues, we peel back the onion with our guests into the topics that impact your business the most.
I thought with that cool new microphone, you might be singing a few tunes as well.
No, I should have. If there was words to that tune, I would have. My camera seems to be a little fuzzy right now. Or maybe it's just my eyes.
No, you're a little fuzzy right now.
Let's see if it adjusts for me. I'm sure it will momentarily. How are you?
Doing okay. How are you?
Very, very good. The things are changing out there these days, aren't they?
I think so. It's
okay.
Another week, another set of changes.
Yeah. Well, we'll dive right into that in a moment. I'm looking, Tom, as we're on our simulcasting tool that we use, I look a little bit fuzzy, but I'm looking at the LinkedIn feed and it's not too bad. So I'm not quite sure what's going on there, but we'll adjust to that. But anyways, you're getting ready to hit the road next week, aren't you?
I am. Let me out of the house.
Yeah, out to see a key customer and work with them on some technology issues, which is exciting. That'll be great. And I'm headed off to the Industrial Supply Association's event in Orlando, Florida. Looking forward to that ISA event. They're always good speakers, good networking, and so forth that go with that as well. So, but why don't, before we dive in, why don't we do a little bit of the housekeeping that we normally do, if that works out okay? What do you say?
Yep, let's do it. Quick. We got a lot to cover today.
We got a lot to cover. You have a couple of exciting things, and I know there's a couple topics you want to move beyond quickly as well. But so I'm Kevin Brown. I'm here with my lifelong friend and co-founder of LeadSmart Technologies, Tom Burton. We get together every Friday morning here, unless like next week we won't be here because one of us will be on an airplane. But we get together each week. We talk about the news of wholesale distribution and manufacturing. We look at everything going on in the world, whether it's port strikes, supply chain issue, M&A activity, finance, the economy, sales and marketing, e-commerce, human resource things. We look across at all of those and we try and discuss what is happening with that as how it relates to wholesale distribution. And so we do that each week here. We send out a newsletter every Friday morning. It goes out to about 10,000 plus people. And that newsletter is called, again, Around the Horn in Wholesale Distribution and Manufacturing. If you would like to receive that and you don't get it, it's easy to get. Just reach out to us. You can reach us at hello@leadsmarttech.com and we'll get that out to you right away. Additionally, you can get information about that at the website that we have for the podcast, which is www.aroundthehornpod.com. Past episodes will be there. We're going live this morning on LinkedIn Live, YouTube Live, and Facebook Live like we do every week. And later in the day, this broadcast and live cast will be available on Spotify, Odyssey, Apple Podcasts, all the top podcast platforms, wherever you get those. And we would love it if you would join us there. If you are listening on the podcast, you do not get an opportunity to see what we're showing on. No, I did that on purpose, Tom.
Oh, you did that on purpose. Okay.
I'm trying to get my camera to adjust here. But thanks for the throwing me off base there. But anyways, if you're listening on the podcast, you don't get to see our beautiful faces, nor do you get to see the newsletter that we have there. So if you'd like to get a copy of that, please let us know. So, and finally, in doing so, if you like what you are listening to each week, best way to do it is share that information with friends. If you're listening on LinkedIn, on YouTube or Facebook, hit the subscribe or the follow button on the LeadSmart Technologies page. You'll get alerts for this each week. If you're listening to the podcast on Apple or Spotify or somewhere else, just hit the subscribe button and leave a review, and that'll get out to others. Last thing before we move ahead is we couldn't do this each week if we didn't have the support of the company that Tom and I both work for, LeadSmart Technologies. LeadSmart has developed a AI-enabled customer intelligence and CRM solution that is truly a foundational tool for wholesale distributors and manufacturers to gather information from around their organization through ERP, marketing automation, e-commerce, data lakes, other tools and bring that together to get AI-enabled insights into what is happening at their customer and within their organization to help accelerate growth. If you're a wholesale distributor or a manufacturer and you're ready to digitally transform, we would love to talk to you about that. So that's about it, Tom. Ready to dive in? We've got Will with us. We've got Bob here with his morning.
I want to say good morning to Will. Hey, Will, I'm going to a big Infor customer next week. So if I need any help, I'm going to give you a call. And again, welcome, Bob. Aloha. And yeah, if you're out there listening, please check in. Let us know you're here, where you're from. Always great to know who's out there.
Very good. Want to dive into the news with us there, Tom?
We can do that.
Fix my camera.
Oh, yeah. As soon as I brought up the news, your camera was fixed.
No, I did it on my own. So I don't ever question my abilities with technology. It had somehow changed on its own. It changed the setting of the quality of the image. So I'm a higher quality image now, just to put that on the record. Yep. So hey,
I'm just going to skip all of these and move on to the news.
Yeah, you just want to go right back past this economy and supply chain.
That's right.
By the way, hey, good to see Rodney Williams with us from North Texas. Crystal's joining us too from Saskatoon.
Wow. Oh, Kevin, you just died. You just died. No sound. Going to have to go back to the other microphone. This happened earlier where he has a cool new microphone, but it likes to cut out, I think, after like 5 minutes. No. Why don't you go out and go back in? All right. He's coming back and going back in. Lars, greetings from sunny Minnesota. You know, I'm going to Wisconsin next week, and I was hoping to get a little taste of fall. And they tell me, though, it's going to be in the 70s and quite warm. So I guess in Minnesota, it's been very warm as well. I was talking to another customer in Minneapolis this week, and I think they said 80s. So, but there might be some leaves that are changing colors. So looking forward to that, which we do not get here in California. All right, just another minute here, and hopefully Kevin's technical difficulties will be handled. Well, now he just disappeared completely. And I'm hoping that his computer is not rebooting. Will's asking what part of Wisconsin. It's about an hour, I think, from Green Bay, about an hour north of Green Bay, somewhere in that area. I don't know exactly the city, but yeah, Bob, I need the Jeopardy theme here. And otherwise, I'm just going to do the news by myself. I'm going to give Kevin another minute, and then, hey, you're going to get my take on the news. But yeah, Duncan's saying it's changing color in Toronto. That's good. That's good. Yeah, I've heard about that Mars Cheese Castle now from a couple of different people. I don't know if that's going to be exactly in the area that I'm going to be into, but I've heard about that Mars Cheese Castle, Will, from a few different people, and I'm sure there's some cheese curds all over the place. Okay, well, I see Kevin coming back, but it says his device is not connected. Thank you, everybody, for all the comments to keep us going here while Kevin sorts through his technical difficulties. Yeah, I heard it's a little bit of a drive, but it's funny because it's like the few people I've told I've gone to Wisconsin, like 3 of them have said go to the Mars Cheese Castle. So it must be pretty epic. You know, I'd really like to start on the news and start talking about rate cuts and things like that, but I just don't feel I can do that. Where Yeah, Bob says he's from New England, and they start coming up from leaf peepers start coming up from New York. Yeah, my wife is from New Hampshire, so we try and go out every year to New Hampshire to see the leaves and all of that. And yeah, it's probably a bigger tourist season. It's probably a bigger tourist season there in the fall than it is in the summer, or at least similar in size, just different people. Yeah, Will, I may be dancing here in a minute. I'll be dancing through the news. I don't know why Kevin is having so many problems here all of a sudden. He got a new microphone. I don't know why that would kill his computer. All right, I'm giving him 30 seconds. Yeah, my Bob saying he moved from Dallas to Manchester. All my in-laws live in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and Exeter, New Hampshire, which is right on the border of Maine. Really a cool area. It's about an hour north of Boston, and it's just unbelievable up there with the leaves and the color, especially if you get there at the right time, at the right peak. There is some just amazing stuff. Warren's, yes, I've been to Warren's Lobster House, which is in Kittery, Maine, which is right across the river from New Hampshire. And not only do they have good lobster, but they have an amazing salad bar, if I remember correctly. So, yes, we tend to go there most of the time when we're in town there. All right, hey, I'm going to get rolling here. I have no idea what's going on with Kevin and his computer, but let's get into the news here. So, hey, as we all know, the Fed slashed interest rates by 0.5 point. And if you've been listening to our show and our bet, Kevin is gloating because not only did they say they cut rates by 0.5%, but they said they're going to be cutting rates another 0.5% before the. Oh, here he comes. He must have heard me. Are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. Well, thanks to Bob and Will and everybody else, they kept us going. We chatted about all kinds of important things here.
Yeah. So new laptop arrives Monday, my new MacBook. Apologies to you and to everyone. I'm wondering, though, if actually that was all done on your end to keep me from gloating too much.
That's what I was hoping. That's what I was thinking. I was just about ready to go through and give my take. But hey, let's speed up here.
Well, let's just. How much did you cover about that? Because I do
just started. We just started.
Okay, my apologies. Yeah. This has happened once before. New MacBook arrives Monday. I'm quite excited about. I think it just seems, Tom. It seems like that new mic I bought. Like I spent a lot of money on it about a month ago.
Yeah. It just basically overtakes your Mac and it can't handle it. So
well, you think that's the case?
I think that could be part of it.
Good. Well, new machine arrives Monday. Pretty excited about that. I will be fast. Right. Yep. Yep.
So Laura says, ensure your steak, Kevin, has to buy you is a really good one.
Well, yeah. So why would I be buying you a steak, Lars?
Well, because
I'll buy Lars a steak.
Yeah.
Happily.
So look, I admit my probability of buying you a steak is quite high. However, I am not giving up 100% hope.
Okay.
And I think actually the 0.5 point cut works in my favor slightly because they cut more than expected, a big cut to start off.
Uh-huh.
And, they've basically said that they're going to do another 50 basis points this year, but they're going to be very data driven. Mm-hmm. So if we see an uptick in jobs or we see an uptick in the inflation rate over the next 2 months, it's not a slam dunk. They could easily not make that move. And otherwise, I've been looking forward to taking you to Outback, and you're welcome to even have the bloomin' onion if you like with your dinner. I'm totally good with that. So
yeah.
And Will says he's going to call the chairman. I appreciate that, to push the next cut out to January. Just tell him there's no rush, Will. There's no rush, right? The new year is better. So,
what's in your coffee cup? What are you drinking this morning?
I figured I just had to take over the show myself. So that's
but there's that gin in your coffee cup or tequila. Before we go on from there, just because of the delusion that you're talking, and Will was saying some silly stuff like that yesterday on a LinkedIn post I had, although he did put a beautiful steak there, picture of one on there. And but listen, there is the dot plot that's I think we've missed here. And the dot plot is suggesting, as they describe that, and I'll just read this. It says, in addition to this reduction, the committee indicated through its dot plot the equivalent of 50 more basis points of cuts by the end of the year, close to market pricing. The matrix of individual officials' expectations pointed to another full percentage point in cuts by the end of 2025 and a half point in 2026. And all the dot plot shows the benchmark rate coming down about 2 percentage points beyond Wednesday's move. My friend, there would have to be some pretty big news out there.
But look at what happened in a week, right? Mm-hmm. 1 week ago, we said on the show, and there was an article I think we went through, that we were talking about that the chances of them making a half a point cut was like 17%. It was very, very low. And if I remember correctly, the article was, hey, if they do a half a point cut, the stock market's going to go crazy, go down because they're going to freak out, right? It's going to show a sign of and in the course of I think by Monday, I don't know what the heck happened, but the chances were up to like 50% for a half point cut. And by the time Tuesday or Wednesday rolled around, it was like 70% or 80%. Yeah. What changed in 4 days? Right?
Leaks.
Yeah,
leaks,
obviously. But
data,
anyway,
information getting out.
Yeah, but anyway, I think that they do. He was very clear about them being data driven, and if the data stays the same, then I think you and I are going to be going to Outback for a steak and a bloomin' onion. If it doesn't stay the same, then we'll be having a much better steak somewhere else.
So where we go is dependent upon who wins. Is that the deal?
That's right.
Okay, perfect. No, we went to a really cool steakhouse together in Newport Beach last December. Yeah. That's on the agenda. There's a great place that the famous hockey player Teemu Selanne owns in Laguna Beach. It's called Selanne's. It's around the Pacific Coast Highway. That's kind of where I'm leaning. So you can try and play the Outback game, but that ain't working. But you know what? I listen. Nothing's sure till it's sure. But I think even though Will is agreeing with you, and I thought Lars was my friend first, but the Lars might be along the way as well. But I'm not buying anybody a steak regardless, right? My worst case scenario is we buy our own steaks. So, what did you call it? House money?
Yeah, but if I said there's only one or less, right? So it's actually not 100% house money yet.
Well, how do you figure we've had a cut?
Right. So there's one. So if there's only one, I win.
Okay.
Well, that's more than one, you win, right? That's how it works. So you're not quite on house money yet. I overspoke. But
Bob's got a good comment here, though, getting back to the more important thing of the discussion of the day. So money will be cheaper, but things will be more expensive. And that's, potential for that, right? We've got to get some balancing act going. There's some weird stuff happening out there, though. I mean, the whole, we don't try to not be political here at all, but it's just, I was watching a senator that, really wants to drive corporate profits and stop mergers and so forth and squash a lot of capitalism out there right now. And just to try and drive prices down that way. And boy, there's some risky discussion going on out there related to that. And obviously prices are still crazy. The good news is here in California, gas prices have come down a lot. So I'm very appreciative of that. But you know what? When El Pollo Loco or, it seems like fast food is 80% or 70% of the cost of going down and sitting and having a meal somewhere now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So... All right. Well,
you can go to the Outback for the price of going to Pollo Loco practically. So,
you could, but if you're paying off a debt,
yeah,
then it's not going to play out that way. So
all right, let's move ahead. We got a lot to cover here, and we're behind. So
good. So next articles we're talking about in the newsletter here. Survey shows top execs back to viewing supply chain management as a cost center. This was from Digital 360. Similar article we posted as well from Supply and Demand Chain Executive. They're both referencing a study that was just released and some research that was out there from Ernst & Young. And, it's interesting. And we talk about this, and, we're in our economy and supply chain segment of the show. And we've talked about this a number of times from the standpoint of going through the pandemic. Supply chain issues were out of control. The executives had to take a totally different view of things, and we saw a lot of focus going in on managing supply chain, looking at technology within supply chain, and really having that become such a key part of the company because of the challenges that were with just getting product. And now this article is really talking about how executives as a whole are kind of falling in the wrong direction of, hey, all of our supply chain work and basically it talked about supply chain management people were almost becoming peers of the executives in the organizations, and things are flip-flopping back now. And I couldn't think of a worse time for that to be going on based upon two things. One is the supply chain, while the ships aren't stacked up out there and things are moving a little bit better, we have a very volatile supply chain out there between the risk. We're going to talk in a few minutes about the potential port strikes in the Gulf Coast and the East Coast. And then when we still have the issues in the Suez Canal, we have geopolitical tensions. Now is not the time to be, reverting back to previous thinking.
It said in there in the articles that there's been a switch from supply chain being a growth driver, or supply chain strategy being a growth driver, and now going back to a cost center. And it seems like it's a pretty short memory and a lot of in complacency that would set in that quickly. I don't know. Yeah, it was an overwhelming number of people on their survey that were moving in that direction.
And so the survey, this is Ernst & Young again. The surveys, 347 U.S. supply chain executives from various industries whose companies have at least 500 million in annual revenue. It says, despite heightened awareness of the importance of supply chain, 78% of supply chain leaders say their organization is back to focusing on supply chain cost management, with 28% citing cost reduction as one of the top three priorities, a shift from pandemic-era strategies. They go on to say the series of supply chain shocks that started with the pandemic elevated the role of supply chain leaders in the C-suite, but executive teams are increasingly reverting to outdated views of supply chain as a cost center rather than a growth engine. And that's a big challenge.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think the one of the things to be thinking about with this is, going back to some of the discussions we've had. We talked with our guests last week with James Gilman about this. We've talked to quite a few other guests in the past year about how much more closely they're managing their supply chain and asking harder questions of their vendor partners, if you're a distributor and so forth. I think that's where we need to be, right? Where we need to be is thinking about this just not as the dollars and cents of it, but what does it mean to my customer? We go back to being customer centric with these things, and that's where I think the risk of this is getting away from being customer centric and just doing what's best, appears to be best for the customer with old school. So,
yeah, and I want to, I think what Bob's saying here, we are on the hairy edge of having squeezed so many dollars out of supply chain costs that it's becoming hyper fragile. Doesn't take much to create shockwaves. I don't know if they're looking at this as a cost center. Is there a lot more to squeeze out of it? It seems like there's a lot more opportunity to optimize than there is to squeeze dollars out of the other end.
No, exactly. I mean, we've been having discussions about even AI tools for supply chain management, right? And some deep conversations and those things. And I think this is where the risk with this kind of thinking right now is. There's one school of thought that says we're going to work hard on crunching the dollars in the supply chain. The other side of it is Those are the things you control. But if you're doing that and you're not paying attention to the things that you can't control, and you can't control a Houthi rebel, shooting a drone at a ship that has your raw materials on it. You can't control the geopolitical issues in the South China Sea and China and Taiwan, and then the pressures with the U.S. government in Taiwan. You can't control those things, but you should be preparing for those things. So I think just the point of these two articles in this E&Y survey was, don't go back to pre-pandemic thinking. Take that pre-pandemic thinking or the during the pandemic thinking and make it your post-pandemic view of how you manage supply chain in your business, is understanding all of the factors and on a consistent and ongoing basis.
Yep.
Good. I'm done pontificating on that point.
All right. So speaking of supply chain, it looks like Biden is not going to step in any way if there's a strike here on the East Coast. So,
I mean, stop and think about the implications of that, Tom. There's what we're talking about with this is Maine to Houston, down the East Coast and across the central part of the country. No ports open, right? Potential. And by the way, in about 2 weeks. And
I wonder if ships are hustling to get in there fast.
Well, they're already moving to the West Coast, right? We talked about that a few weeks ago. There's there's already been a shift coming that direction. And this is a big deal. But, we could pass by this, but, there's what was it called? There's the Taft-Hartley Act, right? That allows the government to step in regarding labor issues. Biden said that they've never, it says we've, so his administration never invoked it before. He sent out an emissary, the acting labor secretary, last summer, right, when there was the risk on the LA Long Beach port issue with this. And yeah, they got something done. I think that was still somewhat of a fragile deal. But the good news of all of this, is it hasn't happened yet. They're talking. I'm guessing they're going to extend talks probably a little bit. The union said something that we posted a week or two ago, though, that they're not fooling around and that they're ready to go. I listened the other day. We had a guest on earlier this year that's I really enjoyed having with us, Eric Hoplin, the CEO of the National Association of Wholesalers. And Eric was on Fox Business Network earlier this week. It's called Mornings with Maria Bartiromo. And it's a pretty big and popular show. And, what Eric was talking about, I listened to a couple of clips. I commented on, he posted a part of the clip on LinkedIn. I shared it. If you follow me on LinkedIn or we're connected, you can see it there, or go out and check Eric's comments. The issue that's going on here is powerful, right? And the issue that's being talked about, Tom, here in this setting is the idea of automation. And that's the big issue. And what they're trying to do is completely block any automation coming into cranes, gates, container movements, any of those things, right? And this is a protectionist type things, right? We got to protect the jobs. Understandable. But Eric made this great point. He was talking about the port of Rotterdam in the Netherlands. And what he was saying there is it's one of the most automated and mechanized ports in the world. And when they did all of that, there was no significant job loss issues that went along with it. And so he used, I think this was great. Eric used the point of, he just said, look, we're not the most sophisticated supply chain in the world that we probably think we are, specifically when it comes to our ports. And he said, we're at a moment, I loved it. He said, we're at a moment of Blockbuster or Netflix. What do we want to be in our ports and our supply chain in the U.S.? Because right now we're in that Blockbuster world, right? And the rest of the world, specifically a lot of the European ports, are embracing technology that's there that are making them more sufficient. There's research that's saying we're not losing jobs because of it, right? And I've spent a lot of time when you and I were just out of high school. I worked for a company and I was in the port of Long Beach or LA every day. And, that was eons ago with steamships coming in, it feels like, versus tanker ships. But you go through the harbors. I'm just going to call a spade a spade. Somebody can get mad at me, but there's a lot of waste with a lot of, it's kind of, we joke about the Caltrans cruise, right? Here in California, right? It's one guy with a shovel and 7 guys watching. There's a lot of that in the harbor. And I think the research is saying we got to automate these things. And that's an issue of staying competitive in this country.
Yeah. Well, hey, look, whether I don't know what's going to happen in this strike or how this is going to resolve, but it's going to happen, right? So whether it happens now or later, and just make it more friction, more difficult, but the automation is going to happen. So it's anyway. It seems like there's probably I don't know enough about the situation, but that seems like a tough one to try to hold the fort on.
Well, they got enough people that are ready to stop working, but eventually it's all going to happen, right? So let's jump into our manufacturing and distribution segment.
Yeah, this first article, interestingly enough, I didn't realize this, but there are ETFs out there,
right?
Electronic traded funds, or basically little, not mutual funds, but sets of stocks that are all related to nearshoring or reshoring or bringing things back to the U.S. And I think they're also, what the article said is they're also being essentially accelerated through the fact that there's a lot of money set aside for projects and for reshoring and things that are happening here in the U.S. So a lot of money, I think they said record amounts of money pouring into these funds that are all related to companies that are in the reshoring, nearshoring industry.
2.25 billion has flowed in just this year, right? They're expecting that brings total assets, they said, in these funds to $9.5 billion. So they said companies. The quote was from one of them. One of the ETFs says companies keep referring to reshoring as a long-term driver of their growth, and our goal is to find beneficiaries or enablers of that trend before that theme is mainstream. Here's the kicker on this, right? And I think this is not somewhere I would put my money right now. I love the idea, but I think the kicker on this is what they're trying to look at with this is some short-term returns, because we still have labor cost issues in this country. We still have raw material. We still have transportation issues. We could have closed ports. Now, that was all, some of those drive towards the idea of this being of bigger value. But I think that we've got to see some of this play out. I think these ETFs got started, a lot of it because of the government money that's coming back to reshoring and the overall growth here. But listen, no matter how you slice it, BlackRock is in on this as well. And one of their funds through this, which is an infrastructure development fund, year-to-date returns are 26.6%.
Yeah,
tough to argue.
No, I look. I don't know all the details of what they're investing in and so forth, but it seems like it's a trendy type play at the moment right now. Trend-based play. I think there could be some short-term opportunity. This isn't investment advice, but it's probably not something I would be looking at to hold for 10 years. But if it's something that, to put money in for a year or two, might work. I think
that with some stops in it, right?
Yeah.
Good. Anyways, interesting article. So as we kind of jump ahead from that, good article from Industry Today. U.S. manufacturing is facing a once-in-a-generation change. I kind of like that. Kind of important to look at from that standpoint. They talk about supply chains are being reconfigured, wages are rising, consumer demand is softening, cost pressures are continuing, the times are not easy for U.S. manufacturers, and incremental improvements will not be enough to ensure long-term success. So I thought that was a value and a benefit to kind of get a look at, because those are the realities of what we're seeing right now, right? No matter how you slice it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I thought the article was actually quite good. I mean, I thought it was quite thorough and talking about just a lot of different areas as it relates to manufacturing. And I think that could carry over to distribution as well.
Yeah.
That is, that kind of need to be shored up, I guess, for lack of a better word. No pun intended. And so anyway, I just thought, there was a lot going on in that article and a lot of things. Obviously, technology was a big part of what they were saying, and automation, interestingly enough, was a big part of that as well.
Yeah. I think this just kind of all these pieces kind of tie back together with what we were seeing earlier about supply chain executives in manufacturing. And you tie these pieces together with what's going on in manufacturing. So they talked about change management and organizational health front and center. They had another piece in there about skills development, a core part of transformation. Right, no matter how you slice it, you're not going to be able to stay competitive in this world unless you are bringing in newer technologies. That means you've got to upscale your workers, and then talking about communicate with shareholders, and if you're involved in capital markets. But I don't know. I sent it to you kind of last minute. There was a chart in here. Did you by chance grab that?
I did.
And the chart is really talking about an effective transformation of U.S. manufacturing. Again, if you're listening on the podcast, you're not going to be seeing this, so I'm going to read a little bit of it. But an effective transformation of U.S. manufacturing sector could boost GDP by $275 billion to $460 billion, while adding up to 1.5 million jobs. So this, though, ties back to some of the thinking that we were talking about earlier, with executives looking at manufacturing and supply chain with reverting to old school thinking. You're not going to achieve any of these things with that. But if you're thinking forward and you're upscaling your workers, you're managing your supply chain well, you're embracing technology. Listen, I mean, between $275 billion and $460 billion to the U.S. GDP, it's a lot of money, plus 1.5 million jobs. Talk about strengthening the economy. So
and what this is saying is, right, rather than trying to save jobs, what we were just talking about, and be on the defensive,
right?
Go on the offense and create jobs.
Yeah, great point, Tom.
There'll be a lot of jobs created on the offense versus trying to play defense to keep the jobs.
Yeah, I think
they may be different types of jobs. They may require some different skills. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of job. If you're growing at this race, there's definitely going to be room for people to be involved. So
this was an article written by two McKinsey executives as well. I didn't reference that. And their point here really was about, the very first one was make skills development a core part of your transformation. And so, look, to your point that you just made a moment ago, the things are changing, right? It's not that, and I don't think we're going to have to look at these things as, it's not like Joe in the warehouse that drives a forklift now has to be trained to program a computer. No, Joe in the warehouse that drives a forklift most days now has to also understand that there's going to be some robots running around or some other automations in the warehouse, and he's going to need to be upskilled in that setting to support his ongoing job. So I think we're in an interesting time, right? And I think, we may look back in a few years and listen to some of these episodes again and kind of get some giggles out of it. So, Tom, before we jump ahead to the next article, though, I just did want to jump in here and remind everyone, if you're live with us, you're seeing the newsletter that we put out every week. That newsletter's called Around the Horn in Wholesale Distribution and Manufacturing. If you don't get that newsletter and you would like to, just reach out to us at hello@leadsmarttech.com or directly at www.aroundthehornpod.com, which is a website for our podcast, and we'll get you added to that list. So if you're listening, you don't get to see it. So sometimes we describe things a little bit further than normal because of those that are listening on the recorded podcast. So, Tom, we've talked a number of times recently about, over the past 6 to 8 months, about QXO, which is a large fund, including an integrated technology company that goes with that, that's led by Brad Jacobs. Brad Jacobs is the guy that consolidated trash companies around the country that became Waste Management, and then consolidated local and regional equipment rental companies that became United Rentals. He is reported to have a net worth of himself of over $6 billion. He's put this interesting and unique fund together to go out and start buying large distribution companies. I'm not aware of it all. I was anticipating more of a focus that he would be buying some large regional players and so forth with this, but they're what do you like to say? Olive out of the jar. Is that right? First olive out of the jar.
First olive out of the bottle. Yeah.
Yeah. Was a $9.4 billion offer for Rexel, which just absolutely astounded me to catch that. So, any thoughts on that? Pretty aggressive.
No, I mean, I don't know what the strategy is, right? I don't know enough about what his strategy is and why making such a mega deal in the beginning, how that fits into his roadmap or his blueprint.
Yep. Well, it's interesting. I mean, it's obviously a large group. If you looked up Brad Jacobs on, I don't know him. I know a number of people that know him, but I don't know him. But actually, interesting enough, his Wikipedia page is quite intriguing. But I mean, I get their focus on being very aggressive and wanting to get jumping ahead. But it's an interesting piece. And Rexel is such a large player in the electrical and electronics market that's a big statement. So we're going to watch that closer. We're going to continue to pay attention to it as it goes. So, all right, e-commerce and marketing, 15 exciting trends that are impacting B2B digital marketing 2024. Article from Forbes. Any quick takeaways from you before I dive in on that?
There were a couple things in there that really I thought jumped out as being. One of them is they were talking about newsletters, interestingly enough.
Yeah.
And it's funny that just yesterday, I learned in LinkedIn, for example, you can now send a newsletter associated with your business page. You couldn't do a newsletter associated with your business page until recently. And I think LinkedIn is giving newsletters a lot of priority in the news feed and the subscribers and all of that. So what they were talking about in there is, and I've heard about Beehive, I hadn't heard about the other one, is basically rather than sending newsletters out by email, like we do every week, right? And we know when we send it out by email, the fact is a lot of times it's not going to end up in a large percentage of the people's inbox, right? The spam, and even if they've asked for it or whatever, the corporate spam filters and all that stuff decide that it's not going to get past the spam wall. So by having a newsletter channel outside of email, which LinkedIn is and what these are, I think it's something that I know we're going to explore, is a really interesting. This was just one example of things in here that I found that were, what I liked about this is it wasn't the same old. There were some unique and really interesting strategies of what they talked about.
Well, I mean, unrelated to this let me rephrase it. It wasn't mentioned exactly in this article, but you talked about, kind of some old school. It was number 4 on the list, old school strategies. We were on a call earlier this week together with our agency, a marketing agency for LeadSmart, and we were talking about direct mail, right? When was the last time you heard somebody talk about direct mail in B2B SaaS, right? So it's interesting. So these, I'm not going to hit them all, but the other interesting one was that I'm talking about video storytelling. We think about that as, it's not a new concept of and necessarily successful. Let me rephrase that. It's not that it's not successful. It's not new, but it's not been as successful with people even trying it in wholesale distribution. I've seen a little bit of it, but not a whole lot of it. So that it says under this particular one, a more strategic use of video in ongoing consumerization of B2B experiences is a key trend. And, isn't it interesting? We talk about that they made that statement. We talk about it constantly about buyer journeys and buyer expectations. Is the consumerization is a great point. So I like that there's 15 points in here. We can't talk about them all. One of the things is human-driven connections, right? Just getting back there and having lunch once in a while. And there's the only other one I'll mention just so we can kind of jump ahead today was that tying your why to your prospect's purpose, right? So, that kind of goes back to Simon Sinek's famous talk about understanding your why within your business. And so that's the first step, is even understanding why you're here, right? But then after that is putting energy to understanding the purpose, or what is your prospect's purpose? what drives their business. And when you understand those things, you can crystallize, was the term they used, your message between your why and their purpose. And now all of a sudden you see some pretty amazing results.
Yeah, I think that'd be a great exercise.
Yeah.
Because, you hear a lot about product market fit and all of that, but I think the extension to that would be why purpose fit, right? Does your why and their purpose align, and are you communicating in the same way around us, right?
Yeah.
And
the last one I wanted to, I'm sorry, Tom, sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say the only other one of these 15 that I'll mention is apparently there's this new thing that's supposedly successful we should look into. So they call it LinkedIn Live. So maybe we should check in on that.
Yeah, you just need to make sure you have a good computer and a decent microphone that doesn't cause you to crash. And it's a really good platform.
It arrives Monday.
Okay.
This actually, I'm going to miss this MacBook because it got me through the pandemic.
Okay.
We spent a lot of time together.
Well, put it in like a little case or something.
Yeah, I'll put it up on the wall behind me in a little shadow box. Perfect. Right. Love it. Good. All right. How to improve B2B demand generation with qualifying buying groups. We can kind of hit that fairly quick, but I thought there were some pretty good points in there. The interesting thing for me in there, Tom, is, and I talk about this a lot, and I think you subscribe to the same theory because it's what we are looking to do within our company at LeadSmart Technologies, is the idea of aligning sales and marketing. Now, that's a simple statement, but most companies don't do it, right? There's just push-pull, right, of sales and marketing. We look at things from having a revenue department where everybody has a goal that they're working together to achieve. It's not how many MQLs did I develop in marketing to marketing qualified leads to throw over to sales as a sales qualified lead then, and sales saying marketing sucks and marketing saying sales sucks. No, we're all achieving a revenue goal, right? And there were some really good points I thought in this article related to that. They gave 5 key points in there as well that were solid. Any takeaways from you from that article?
Yeah, well, just to clear up what they mean by a buying group, right? What they're talking about in there is in B2B, there is generally a group of people that are making the buying decision. It's not an individual generally. It is a group of people. And even if all of those people don't have authority, they have influence to the buying decision that's there. So their point being is, and this is almost like we were just talking about the why and the purpose, right? You'll align to the reason to make sales and marketing more in alignment is so that as a team, you can do a better job of communicating to these buying groups. And I think they even call it a marketing qualified buying group or something. Right. That you've done enough to actually, a lot of people get a lead, right? And they say, oh, I got a name. I scanned a badge at a trade show, or somebody signed up at my website or whatever. Well, that could be, it is most likely one individual out of many in a meaningful B2B purchase that is making those decisions on how you're going to work with them. So understanding the entire buying group and marketing as it relates to the whole, and selling to the whole buying group is really the key message in there. And I thought it was very relevant. Good.
So let's, I think all roads lead back to aligning all groups within your company, right? For the common goal. And I think people miss out, sometimes I think purpose within a company and or core values ties to the old thinking of a mission statement, where I remember consulting with a company years and years ago, and they invited me to a day and a half of meetings with a third part. It was an organizational development company where we sat in a room, and I'm laughing as I think back through this, with I think the lowest level person was a senior manager. The rest of it was directors, VPs, and executives working on a mission statement. And it was a cool exercise, right? But at the end of the day, they just had something to frame and put up on a wall, right? As opposed to what are the core values within the company that we operate from. And when you have core values, you can hire related to your core values, and you can put those things together. And then all the divisions within your organization or groups within your company should be working and aligned on those core values or your purpose. And when you put those things together, that's where you see the shining star of companies that are way ahead of their competitors.
Yep.
Good. All right. Technology, cybersecurity, and AI. Let's move past this first article, but I do want to mention it. It's from Cybersecurity Dive. It's 98% of organizations worldwide connected to a breached third-party vendor. So, end of the day, all but 2% of companies worldwide are connected with an organization who has been breached and are doing business with them and have some level of connection within their organization. So, go cybersecurity. I have a good friend. I think you've met my buddy Ed before. Ed leads cybersecurity for a huge national company. And we keep laughing. It's because his son just graduated from high school and isn't sure exactly trade school, college, what is he going to do? And I keep looking at this and going, a young guy learning all of this could be making, $150,000, $200,000 a year very, very quickly at a very young age if you really dive in and understand cyber. So good. Hey, so evidently there was an event with the folks, our friends from Salesforce this week.
There was Dreamforce this week. Yeah, in San Francisco.
Tom, before we jump into that, let's clarify something about when I say our friends. So we mentioned at the beginning of the show, those of you who know us or may already know this, Tom and I are the co-founders of LeadSmart Technologies, an AI-enabled customer intelligence and CRM solution. As you probably know, every piece of software in the world is built on a platform of some sort. LeadSmart, our product is actually called Channel Cloud. The Channel Cloud is actually built on the same software development platform that Salesforce.com is built on. So we're at LeadSmart, we're one of about 500 companies globally that Salesforce allows to develop on their platform and use their cloud solutions. So while our customers solely have a business relationship with us at LeadSmart, no business relationship with Salesforce, their data sits in Salesforce's cloud. So we get to take advantage of the technology that Salesforce is developing, along with the technology that we've developed to bring unique vertical specific solutions to wholesale distributors and manufacturers. So that's a little bit of a background of why we get excited about this, not just because of what's happening, but because we're what's called a global strategic OEM partner of Salesforce here at LeadSmart.
Yep. So Salesforce had Dreamforce this week, and the entire show revolved around a new product that they're releasing, an AI product called Agentforce. Mm-hmm. And I'll try and keep this simple. So what that is they've been a big AI proponent for a couple of years now. And basically they're saying, hey, we have built a new platform that allow you to build AI agents. Think of like an AI, something that has AI that takes data in, reasons with that data, and then potentially does an action and is very interactive. And that could be a customer service agent. It could be a sales agent. Again, these are all AI. I think they released, 97 different templates, they said, of different agents that are available. And this article, though, talked about two things. One is Mark Benioff, the CEO, kind of called this agent release the killer app of AI, which
I've heard that term before.
Yeah, I've heard that as well, and I agree. I've told you, and I'm going to show a video here in just a second, but I've been saying that really for AI to kind of become mainstream and really start to generate, companies need to be able to see that killer app, right?
Right.
The things you can do with ChatGPT and writing emails or writing a blog post or a press release, well, that's helpful. It's not the killer app that I think a lot of companies have been looking for. So, Benioff was saying that, hey, this is the killer app. Where were you when you heard this announcement? A lot of hype, right? Which he's very good at.
I was in a Waymo.
Yeah. It was like we call it the Waymo moment, right? When you're the first time you drive in a self-driving car, you remember that. But he also, what I thought was interesting is he talked a lot about the fact that in so many words, hey, this is early stage stuff. and things may not work as well as you may expect, right? So he took a big, bold move to release something, which we've heard a lot of people talk about stuff, but not release things.
Yeah.
Knowing that we're still in the early stages, and they have a very tight relationship, Salesforce does, with OpenAI. So they get a lot of the technology that us mere mortals wouldn't get access to.
When you say us mere mortals, what you're really referencing there is other technology companies like LeadSmart, right?
Any technology, anybody who's trying to build with the OpenAI API.
But there's companies like Salesforce, right here. Then there's companies like us. My hands are off here. And then there's the day-to-day user, Joe user, smaller technology companies, and then the Salesforces of the world.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. There's three levels of what people get to see.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, I thought it would be worthwhile to show, it's about a minute, a video of an example of an agent. And as you watch this video, you're going to look at this. You're going to see this is actually something that Saks Fifth Avenue has implemented in their company for customer support. But as you look at that, think about the possibilities. There's certainly flaws with this by no means, but you can start to see the possibilities. So let me go ahead and play this.
So Tom, before you start, can I interrupt you for just a second? Yeah, so two things I think that go with that I'd like to add to what you're saying, because this is an exciting time. So first think of, and you were sharing this with me yesterday, was we're still nascent or embryonic or early in AI, right? So there's just so much left to come. So to see where we even are today with these things that are in fact working, think about not just how cool this is, but then that it's just going to continue to get better. The other side of it is, you mentioned that this is Saks Fifth Avenue. If you're listening and getting a chance to watch this, and even if you're listening on the podcast and you don't get to see this, that's fine. Listening will be fine for you on this as well. But think instead about Saks Fifth Avenue. Think about Acme HVAC and plumbing supply, right? And these agents working within there, both supporting sales, marketing, executives, all aspects of the company. This just happens to be a customer service spin on it, but think about agents. And to your point that you were telling me about the other day, is maybe even multiple agents per person working within your organization. So I just wanted to add a little bit to what you were commenting about, thinking about what could come.
Yep. All right, let's run this video.
Hi, I'm Sophie, your Saks AI assistant. How can I help you today?
Yeah. Hey, Sophie. This is Patrick. I'm wondering if you can help me with my most recent order. I think I might have got the wrong size.
I'm sorry to hear that, Patrick. I'd be happy to help. Is this about the Saks Fifth Avenue collection cashmere baseball bomber sweater you purchased on September 9th?
Yep, totally is. That's the one. I tried it on and I think it's just a little bit tight.
I'm sorry the sizing didn't work out. Based on your purchase history, a size medium should provide a relaxed fit. How does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. But I noticed you said cashmere. Is it going to shrink?
The sweater is 100% cashmere, so we recommend dry cleaning only to preserve the natural fibers and avoid any potential shrinkage. Would you like to go with a medium?
Yeah, let's do the medium.
Great. Based on your shipping address, you should receive it within 3 to 5 business days. Does that work?
No, I have a pretty big event coming up. Is there any way I can get it in like 1 or 2 days?
Unfortunately, that's the fastest shipping available for this item. Would you like me to transfer you to someone who can assist you further?
No, not right this second, Sophie. Thank you, though.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah. Well, and you know what I look at it is, and I think a big takeaway of this for me from this week and was this is what we've talked about so much about augmenting versus replacing, right? So many people are concerned about being replaced and AI is going to replace and this, that, and the other. What a great tool to augment, right? And so imagine if, now our customer service people or inside sales or whoever it might be, right? When a call gets to them, they know, and we talked about this a number of times recently, right? When you answer the phone, in your CRM, up pops all of the things that are likely going to be going on with this customer, right? And it's not about what to sell them. It's about servicing them at this point, right? And I really, my appreciation from it was, we were messaging, you and I were messaging this morning about this, is for me is, again, it's about the augmentation. You can still tell that's artificial, right? It's just the fact that in that setting that the gentleman was able to get all this information, and if you replace the cashmere sweater with the details about dry cleaning with this type of wire or this cutting tool or whatever it is, and she was out there literally, right, just to show what was really happening with this. What she was doing is accessing ERP, right, CRM, a data lake that's likely full of spec sheets and so forth, and bring all that together almost instantly. And that's where we're moving with all of this. So if you take that back to you're a medical equipment distributor, and now, when even when they're calling Kevin because they want to talk to the person, that digital twin or that agent can pop up and get things started. Yep. And they're never going to wait on hold because the digital twin will always be there.
So and there's two big takeaways from this, and I know we can move on, but
no, it's good. This is great conversation.
Is that obviously, as you said, was driven off of data, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is, it wasn't just order data, but it was customer data, right? People have a lot of order data and transactional data in their ERP.
Yep.
As we know, very few people end up with customer data that they can use to fuel something like this.
Yeah.
So as I like to keep urging people over and over and over, get your customer data act together and look at it as strategically as you would look at your order data, because these two things together are going to drive it. The second thing, if he would have said, it's fine, right? The 3 to 5 days or whatever for the shipping was fine.
Right.
What the agent would have been able to do is actually then facilitate the action of making that happen. Right. To then, make the order for him, get the shipping, probably even give him a tracking number or whatever right on the call. Right.
Yep.
The third thing, which I guess I only had 2, but now I'm going to go 3 and maybe 4, is this was all built without code, right? This wasn't, traditionally when you think of a chat bot, you think of a lot of decision-making code like if-thens and all that stuff. This was not built, and these AI agents are not built off of decision-making type of things. They're built off these large language models. So he could have just as asked you, hey, who do you like in the Rams game this week? Right. And you would have gotten an answer back.
Whoever they're playing is the answer.
Right. And so it's just, and going back to your point, it sounds like a bot, and does sound like a bot at this stage.
But it sounded good.
That's just going to get better. That's just going to get better and better and better. I mean, that's the early stages of it. So I guess the punchline of all of this is, I agree with Mark Benioff that the concept of agents in business is the killer app for AI, right? Okay. Agents that can take data, can reason, right? Make reason and think through things, and then take action is the killer app for AI. Yep. We have not been able to do that yet, and still can't do that yet, because technologically we're not there to have those, I hope Salesforce is going to be able to pull this off, but, and I'm sure they are in some cases, and they have a lot of resources that are backing these up in these large companies. But again, none of this happens without having that data platform in place with your customer data, your order data, and those two things working together. So
agreed. And I think what's interesting about this too is, one of the things that I'm really appreciative of our relationship with them at Salesforce, because it's our view as well, is Salesforce looks at things, right, I think they make the comment that your data is not our product. I think is the comment that Mark Benioff made in that setting. And, that's one of the risks when you start looking at your AI vendors is, what are they doing with your data as it relates to other models and things like that? So important thing to consider as well. So it's an exciting time, right? It's an exciting time in business and careers. I mean, I don't just, I just was thinking back to Zach Cass that was an early stage person at OpenAI that spoke at Distribution Strategy Group's event last October in Chicago on AI. And he said that the magnitude of AI is long term for us is going to have a similar impact to fire. When cavemen or whoever it was figured out fire, that was the implications of this. Way exponentially greater than the implications that the internet even had, and that's astounding if you think about it, because we wouldn't be sitting here without the internet. There would be no LeadSmart Channel Cloud product in that setting.
There'd be no LinkedIn Lives. I wanted to just touch on, and I think this is great that Lars is saying, is that Kelley School of Business in Indiana is launching an executive class on AI marketing, and I mean that's going to be so critical. I mean, you look at the curriculum in higher education is going to have to change very, very much to be adapting in this AI world. So.
Yeah, that's good.
All right. Where do we go with time we got left?
Just where we're at, we posted another article from Supply HT, Artificial Intelligence Stats for Distributors to keep in mind. Trying to get there where we're thinking about things are more than just a buzzword. We were talking earlier this week in a couple of meetings, and it's really, as I said, I'm headed off to the Industrial Supply Association's event next week, and back for a couple of days, and off to a SaaS CEO summit, and then 3 weeks in a row of affiliated distributor meeting, along with the Net Plus Alliance meeting as well. And common theme with these things is going to be about AI being kind of a shiny object versus bringing it into our business to achieve things. And we're early in this, but having a digital strategy is so important. We were on the phone earlier this week with a huge distributor. Won't even mention the market that they play in because somebody could probably figure them out pretty quickly. That's putting a digital roadmap together for the future of their company. And there's a whole AI component to that, and having a roadmap of not just your technology or your tech stack, but your digital journey and your AI journey as part of the digital journey, I think could never be more important than right now, because we talk to companies every day who have gone out and bought a lot of software, but they're not getting any value from the software, or it's poorly adopted, or it's not helping drive revenue or accelerate growth. And with a plan in place, you can go do great things. So,
yeah, I mean, I think every software purchase that any company makes right now has to be a step on an AI. It needs to be a readiness step on that direction. Mm-hmm. Some of these things with AI, with the agents and things we're just talking about. Yep. If you're not thinking from that mentality, right, that what I'm putting in place now needs to be foundational for these things that are coming, you're going to end up having to rip and replace, and a lot of unnecessary impact to the business.
Yep. Good. Let's kind of jump to this next article as we move into our sales and M&A section. We'll go through these pretty quickly today, but this is from salesandmarketingmanagement.com, how to increase sales without discounting. And, this sounds a little rudimentary, but I've spent my whole career in manufacturing and distribution, and watching normally intelligent people just want to compete on price and come back and talking about, what if we got to lower the price. And we even hear that sometimes in our company, people talking about, well, what if we gave them a killer deal? And that's not the right answer, right? The right answer is, having alternative strategies. They talk about a few of them. We won't spend a lot of time, but increased perceived value, right? Bundling of products, improving support, focus on quality, create an exclusive experience, embrace non-discount limited time offers, build strong brand loyalty. And to me, I think the most important one of these they talk about is perceived value. If you're playing in a price game, you didn't identify two things. Identify or share. One is identify the needs and the pain of your customer that you're going to solve, and you've not shown them your perceived value. Because if you're showing them your value in solving their problem, price becomes secondary in most instances. There's times that things are so commoditized that there's no choice, but in general, that's the case. So I thought that was an article worth looking at.
And we have a white paper coming out here, an ebook. I don't know if we're calling it a white paper, an ebook on organic revenue growth. There's so many different opportunities nowadays in distribution for organic revenue growth that does not involve discounting. And, that's different than inorganic growth, like buying or, opening new branches or whatever. But, how do you get more out of what you already have, the organic growth aspect of it? And, just by going through this process, we've identified, working with our customers and what we've been putting together in this ebook, there's just so many ways to organically grow without discounting. And I think this article touches on a few of those things.
That's great. Good. So following up here, McKinsey published an article about 5 fundamental truths how B2B winners keep growing. The crux of this, we need to kind of move ahead here today, but this is, if you don't get our newsletter and you'd like to get and find this article, just ask us at hello@leadsmarttech.com and we'll get you the newsletter. But this was just, the core of it was a really in-depth look at omni-channel selling. And we talk about omni-channel selling just about every week. McKinsey was just unpacking it better in this article. I thought it was pretty valuable.
It was an outstanding article. It was very thorough, very outstanding. I highly recommend it. It's one of the better articles I've actually seen, just in terms of depth and the level of content that they had.
Great. Good. Jumping ahead there to our people in leadership article from Axios, what Amazon's strict return to office policy says about remote work. And we have entered that place now where I think people are realizing that there are very select people that are successful in working remotely. And Amazon
a lot fewer than people thought.
Yes. We got forced into it in 2020, and now we're at a place where we have to kind of take a look at things a little bit differently and say what really happens. And I've said this for, as long as we've been talking about this, is there is something to be said for talking to somebody at the water cooler or walking around the corner to the sandwich shop or sitting in a lunchroom. And it is to the benefit of the individuals and the benefit of the company. Amazon came back last week and said, okay, I can't remember the exact number, but it was if you were within a certain number of miles of the company, you needed to be in the office. And a substantial amount of people now are stuck in that setting, right?
It's an interesting thing. When you were off the air earlier, we were talking about, New Hampshire, for example, where all my in-laws are. And in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, right after or during the pandemic, tons of people from Boston moved up there because they were all like, hey, I don't have to work in the office anymore. And I can be out in the, rural side of things. And I'm wondering, and prices drove up and so forth. I wonder what that's going to do to real estate in some of these areas that are, more rural or more out there. If a lot of those people that move to Portsmouth, New Hampshire, which is an hour plus away on a good day from Boston, what happens if they have to come back to the office? It's great to say I'm going to commute, but that gets old pretty fast. Pretty quickly.
Well, so. I think you're right. And I don't know this, but I don't think you have the train or transit system going into Portsmouth that you necessarily would have from Philly to New York or somewhere like that.
They do have some trains, but it's not set up to be a commuter type of thing.
Yeah. Right. No. I think what we're seeing here, there's two sides of it. I think what you were just describing there is the potential for a downturn in some markets because people are going to need to be selling and moving back if they want to keep their job. The other thing is, I think what we'll see is a lot of job openings for companies that are making this move. In this case, it's, if you are a completely remote company that has your team and is going to stay completely remote, there's going to probably be a whole lot of e-commerce related talent out there that's available looking for jobs. But they're fully remote and you need to be prepared to work with that. I think the other side of it is that to your comment about real estate is commercial real estate has been just
killed.
Could not have been worse off in the last 4 years than what we've seen. And I think we're going to see that turning around because there's going to be, think about it. We were just talking a few minutes ago about Salesforce, right? I don't know. Something hits me about 16 floors. There's the Salesforce Tower, which is now the tallest building in San Francisco. Well, it went empty. right? And they had just moved in. I don't even think a year before.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's 16 floors of that building that they have that it went empty for all of that time. And now they're bringing people back, as lots of companies are. And this article was about Amazon doing so. So I think that the reality of cutting to the chase on all of this is remote, problematic, hybrid, probably hybrid done right, probably the best for, I hate this term, but I'll still use it, work-life balance, and fully in office, depending on the business that you're in.
Yep. I wonder if we should start an ETF about going back to the office.
You're busy. You need to go develop agents. Okay.
All right. Maybe I can create an agent to create ETFs.
Yes. Okay.
All right. Hey, let's zip through here. I know we're really.
Yep. So we were just to finish up on our people and leadership segment. Final article was related to insights into retaining warehouse workers. We've talked a lot about in the show for a couple of years now about the challenge with hiring warehouse workers. So some good tips about that. So let's, Tom, whip right by quickly our industry scuttlebutt section we do each week. Friends at Tipco in Maryland just partnered, and I think it was actually another acquisition for them. Whitecap bought Job Site Supply in Indiana, and the Industrial Supply Association launched their Women in this Industry Mentorship Program. They've done a phenomenal job at ISA, Brendan Breen and his team, on the volunteers that work with them on the whole concept of not just women in industry, but they call it their Emerging Leader Program as well, for younger folks in wholesale distribution and manufacturing to raise their game and grow with mentorship as well. So like I said, I'll be back with them in Florida for a couple of days next week, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of them. So that's kind of it. We've got our final good read section, just an article from Inc. magazine in there about emotional intelligence. And that kind of, you know what, though? We should hit on that special feature. Border States, the large distributor that core is electrical, but do a lot of other things. They publish regularly their supply chain update. They did their September update, and we've got a link to that here in the newsletter as well. So some good stats in there. But let's get ready to call it a day here, my friend.
Yep. Well,
so
I'm glad we recovered from your early difficulty.
Yeah, I apologize for that. I think you nailed it. Probably what the problem was is I think I've got too many things plugged into a 4-year-old MacBook.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that's the case. So next week I will be turbocharged beyond belief with some new technology that's supposed to arrive on Monday. So my thinking is that this weekend for you, my friend, is probably keep your spending and shopping down, because are we at October or November is the next Fed meeting?
October and December, I believe.
Yeah. So you're going to need to set a couple of dollars aside.
Yeah. I'm going to talk to Lauren, and we'll work out our budget so that we're eating a little bit less in the next week or so.
I'll try and take it easy on you on the wine.
Okay.
Very good.
All right. Thanks everybody for all the comments. Thanks for keeping us moving when we were in the beginning there.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Yep. And before we go, Tom, thanks to everybody, as you said, for being with us. Thanks to our sponsor, LeadSmart Technologies. Anyone at LeadSmart can be of support to you or your team as you want to look into your digital transformation strategy and how to use AI in your business to accelerate growth. Love to talk to you. The one favor, though, that we do ask people every week is if you like what you heard this week, you love the comments from people like Will and Lars and Brandon and the whole group that Bob and the whole group that commented today, plus the hundreds and hundreds of people that are listening that didn't. If you like what you hear, if you like it live, hit the follow button on Facebook Live, if that's where you are, or LinkedIn Live, and follow LeadSmart Technologies. If you're listening on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. And then if you're listening to the podcast, subscribe and leave a review. That'll get this out to other people. Tom, I'm going to get these stats together, and we'll talk about them further. I looked at the podcast stats last week. Over 60 countries, the podcast has been downloaded.
Wow, we're going to have to start speaking some other languages.
I was astounded by
Use
that.
AI to translate everything for us.
Did not think Azerbaijan or Nepal would have people downloading our podcast, but
We should do a live show from Nepal. That'd be great.
Okay, yeah, we'll go with that. On that note, everybody, have a great weekend. Look forward to seeing you again soon. We won't be here next week, but the newsletter will go out. We'll see you soon. Be looking for some great new guests coming as well. Be kind, be safe, and do good things.
Have a good weekend.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode and our guests. Each week, we try our best to dig into the topics that are impacting your business. So please reach out to us and let us know how you think we can make the show better, or topics you'd like for us to tackle or talk about more often, and even guests you'd like to see join us. We're looking forward to bringing you next week's session and hope that until then, you stay safe, stay focused, and do great things. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast and leave a review to help others in wholesale distribution get access to the conversation. And finally, please check out our sponsor, LeadSmart Technologies, and their manufacturing and wholesale distribution industry CRM, customer intelligence, and channel collaboration platform. That's LeadSmart Technologies at leadsmarttech.com.